Hello, and welcome to episode 285 of Super Switch Headz, the premier Nintendo podcast in all of the internet. My name is Jordan Willis.
My name is Patrick Knisley.
My name is David Howe. And boy, oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by a very special guest on today's episode of the podcast. Let's welcome the wonderful Valarie Gold to the podcast. How you doing, Valarie?
Howdy, all. Thank you for having me.
Valarie, just cat's out of the bag. Valarie's my partner, and she plays a lot of Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. So I thought we'd bring her on now that the Animal Crossing has winded down, and we're going to be talking all about Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. Wow, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp Complete. That is quite the tongue twister. Before we get into all that, we're going to talk about the news. Nintendo stock hits an all-time high. Nintendo Switch 2 cases are being sold. There is a leak rumor for Kirby Planet Robobot coming to the Switch. Maybe a home console for Steam? I don't know. But before we get into all that, how's everyone doing today?
I'm doing okay. I'm going to pull a Patrick this week, and I'm pretty sick right now. I was like decently sick when we recorded the last episode, and then I was really sick right after. And then I got really better throughout the week, and then I got sick again. But other than that, I'm fine. So I might be a little low energy today. Apologies if so. No, I'm there with you in spirit, listener. But I did go to a wedding of a friend of the show. Becky Rodriguez got married yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So that was really great to attend that. I hope I didn't get anybody there sick because I definitely thought I was feeling better beforehand, but paying for it today. I also went to a cat-themed 40th birthday party for a friend of mine. So that was fun. So we all wore cat ears and we meowed happy birthday. And it was a totally normal time filled with normal people. But yeah, that's been my week this past week.
Did y'all sing any songs from the musical numbers of Cats?
No, that is, now that you're saying that, I'm realizing how much of a huge missed opportunity that was. But it's okay. Look, we could just do it again the next time my friend turns 40.
There you go. As you do.
Yeah.
My story mirrors David's quite a bit. I was sick. I thought I was better. I wasn't. Surprise, and I got worse. But I actually feel better now. Knocking on wood, whatever you want to call it. Like today is the first day since the last podcast that I've actually felt pretty normal.
Let's go.
And so, frankly, I haven't really been doing much because I've just been like upset that I'm sick. That's what I've been. Like,
You've just been ruining the day.
Yeah, I kind of have. I've been grumpy with everybody around here for like 5 days straight. Sorry.
I wonder how many people like hear that we're sick every week and just like tune out immediately.
All right, same shit, different week.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm doing pretty all right. Last week was kind of a catch-up week for me, just trying to like catch up on some projects that I've been kind of putting off and things like that. So continuing to edit the movie that I shot, because now I'm also going to be the editor on that. Been doing some testing for a very special game that's coming out shortly. We don't know exactly when it's coming out, but I can say with confidence that it's going to be very good. Monochrome Heights. All right.
Yo, where's my copy, Patrick? What the fuck?
You're next, bud.
All right, cool.
And so this past weekend too, Valarie and I tried to go to the Zilker Park tree yesterday, and that was a epic
failure. Yeah.
What happened? What happened?
It's just totally blocked off on both sides. We should have known.
Packed.
They were doing. Yeah, well, they're doing a marathon, like a little family-friendly marathon around the whole perimeter, and we didn't think how that would obviously be blocked off. So
Sure. Yeah. I feel you.
Yeah, we tried to come from both angles. We went from this side and then the other side. It was just all blocked. So we're like, you want to go get a drink? So me and Valarie's mom and Valarie all went to go grab a drink and get some dinner. That was nice. But yeah, Valarie, how you been?
I'm doing well. I'm not sick yet. I recently started playing guitar, so that's been a new hobby of mine.
Nice.
I learned how to play. Like, speaking of cats, one of my first songs I learned was the Maxwell the Cat theme song, which is just a meme. And also I learned that our cat, Jordan and I's cat, is scared of the guitar.
Yeah.
So that's been very helpful from keeping him from scratching on things he shouldn't be scratching on.
Nice. Just play some Dragon Force.
Exactly.
And he goes away.
I just give it a little twang and he scurries away from his wrongdoings.
Amazing.
So that's nice. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Well, last week we did an episode on what dormant Nintendo franchises are most likely to come back with the next system. And that honestly generated just tons of discussion over on our Discord. So much discussion from so many people. I couldn't pick out individuals, just like everybody chipped in talking about what franchises are going to appear, what ones are not. It was a really good conversation. Everyone should join the Discord and be part of that. Over on YouTube, on one of our shorts from this last episode, we got Randall Miller giving us a comment saying, fun fact, Trump's brother was one of the Bethesda main investors and board member of the parent company ZeniMax. I did not know that. There you go.
I didn't know that either. Yeah. We should play 6 Degrees of Separation with all the gaming publishers and the Trump family.
And the president.
Sometime. I think that's a great topic idea for this podcast.
And we got one more shout out too, right? AV over on Blue Sky.
Yeah, on Blue Sky, friend of the show, AV Andrew Valentine, kind of did his own sort of tier list of a lot of the franchises that we talked about in last week's episode. Put Pilot Wings up at S tier. I think it was Wario Land was A. Added Chibi Robo for B tier, and I gotta say I disagree with that. AV, not to yuck your yum, but we've got Co-Robo coming out from the developers of Chibi Robo, so I kind of feel like Nintendo's done with Chibi Robo. But I think the thing that really set me off on Blue Sky was putting Star Fox in F tier. The complete opposite of what we did on our episode. I respect your opinion, but basically AV said with the expectation of new Metroid, Donkey Kong, and F-Zero games for Switch 2, Nintendo have been laying the groundwork, raising awareness for those series steadily over the last few years. They've done no such thing for Star Fox. That's because Star Fox is a series that has cumulative sales that come less to any single Splatoon game or even Nintendo Switch Sports for that matter.
Wow.
So I think you're not wrong, AV, in that the sales for Star Fox have never been great, and Nintendo has tried over and over again to make Star Fox a thing, and it's never really taken off. But my rebuttal is, look at what Switch has done for franchises like Luigi's Mansion, stuff like that. Luigi's Mansion is now like a 15 million seller or something like that on Switch. So I think if that continues on Switch too, we're going to see Star Fox come back with gusto. So sorry to have a debate essentially with myself here in the opening of the episode, but
I'm kind of with AV on this one.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Yeah, you weren't on the episode last week, Jordan.
Yeah, I definitely think y'all put Punch-Out way too high. I think ARMS is the Punch-Out replacement, which I came to that realization as I was typing in Discord. I was like, oh shit, no, ARMS is probably the Punch-Out replacement. I don't think they're making another Punch-Out. And then, yeah, I think Star Fox was way too high up there. I think it is time for Star Fox, and if they pass it off to a third-party developer, it's possible. But I just don't see Nintendo really desiring to make it, because it's even to your point, it's yeah, they sell well on the Switch, but it's well, they didn't even port Star Fox Zero to the Switch, which they ported how many Wii U games to the Switch? And that's one they didn't. So to me, that just says they don't really care about Star Fox, which is unfortunate because I do like Star Fox.
Yeah, I disagree.
That was a great episode, though. I really enjoyed. I was debating with y'all in my head. I was damn.
Thank you. That was one where I was like, man, I really want Jordan to listen to this episode, and I want to hear your thoughts. So yeah. I'm glad you were able to share some of that at the beginning of this year.
Well, yeah, if you too want to be shouted out on next week's episode and you have something to say about something we talk about, then leave a comment on the YouTube or join the Discord and post a comment there, or post a comment on social media and we'll try to shout you out next time. We also appreciate it if you share the podcast with a friend or post about it somewhere online like Reddit. We have a Patreon if you want to financially support the podcast and become a patron over there. And we also have both the audio version you can find of this podcast on all your podcast platforms, as well as a video version you can check out on YouTube. And while you're there, make sure you hit like and subscribe. And we're going to talk about some news. So first, we're going to talk about, as we talk about every week now, Donkey Kong being added to NSO.
I'm A-okay with that. If we could start every news section with Donkey Kong news, I'm happy.
Yeah, so what do we got? We got Donkey Kong Land 3 is now coming to NSO. So this is it, right? There's no other Donkey Kong Country land left, right?
I wouldn't say that. I think that yes, this is the last of the Donkey Kong Land games. You've got those 3, but there's still a lot more Donkey Kong that they can release on NSO. Like
64 or something.
64, Donkey Kong 94, the kind of GB sequel to the original Donkey Kong arcade game. Then you've also got Donkey Kong Country for the Game Boy Color, which is a remake of the SNES game. And then you also, in addition to that, have the remakes of Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3 for the Game Boy Advance. So if Nintendo wanted to keep dropping a Donkey Kong game every 5 days or something, we could be opening with Donkey Kong news well into the new year. So that makes me very excited. Who knows if they'll do that? I kind of do hope they bring the Game Boy Advance games because they are really cool and they have additional stuff that isn't in the original Super Nintendo games. So, we're kind of starting to tread water a little bit with Donkey Kong releases, but it's pretty cool. Have any of you guys played Donkey Kong Land 3 yet since it dropped on NSO?
I haven't even played Donkey Kong Land 1. Sorry, David.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm just going to disappoint you.
It's okay. It's okay. I might be the biggest Donkey Kong fan on this podcast, and that's okay. But Donkey Kong Land 3 is kind of interesting because, it was released for the original Game Boy here in the States, but I think it was like a year later in Japan, they got a Game Boy Color re-release of the game. So while the US Game Boy NSO app got the black and white American version, the Japanese app actually has the Game Boy Color version. So if you go on to the eShop with a Japanese account, you can download that and play that on your Switch. You don't have to actually be in Japan in order to do that. But it's well worth playing the Game Boy Color version, I think, just because it's a little more vibrant and a little more modern. And I really enjoyed that.
Very nice. Well, moving us along, as I think Jordan hinted at the beginning, Nintendo shares have hit an all-time high, a new record this past week. So I guess there was some speculation this might be somewhat in response to, or at least it's following on the heels of Saudi Arabia's fund reducing its stake in Nintendo. I don't know if it has anything to do with that or with some of these Switch 2 rumors and leaks or what have you, but sounds like faith in Nintendo is strong right now.
Well, I mean, they just released all the Donkey Kong Land games for Game Boy Color.
That's what it was, right? Donkey Kong.
I was going to say it was the United Healthcare CEO getting assassinated.
That too. It's hard to pick out any one
event in the world that's happening right now.
Yeah.
But either way, it sounds like probably because the Switch has done so well and because of this new console being imminent, right, is the most likely reasons that are causing this, which I don't know, this is a big vote of confidence in Nintendo because, historically you always hear this, well, they have a hit and then they have a flop with their consoles. But
I think my tinfoil hat is that the people who are doing the trading know that it's coming. And so they are buying now because I feel like also Nintendo has been laying the groundwork across the board, not just video game related with the parks and everything. Next year's could be a really big year for Nintendo. So I think they see the writing on the wall that this company is about to explode out of the video game sphere and into the multimedia sphere. And that is just going to drive the stock even higher. So I think they kind of see the writing on the wall for next year.
Yeah, I keep waiting for a slump in Nintendo stock in order to actually purchase any because I also think it's going up. But it just never slumps and it keeps going up. And made the same mistake with Haktua coin as well. I totally missed my opportunity there. It's fine. Nobody's laughing at that. That's okay. But
well, Haktua girl is laughing at that.
Yeah. We know she listens to this podcast. Also, she has a name. I don't really know what it is, but anyway.
Haley Welch.
There it is. But anyway, okay, and that's the last we'll ever talk about Haktua girl on this podcast. But yeah, I do wonder, if what it's going to look like when the next system finally does get announced. Because you were talking about, it's all anticipatory right now, and I don't know. Like, I feel like the stock market, and I'm no expert on the stock exchange or stock markets, especially when it comes to like foreign companies, but it's just so fickle. And like sometimes it's like something comes out and you're like, oh, this should be like really exciting for everybody. But like people start selling and it's just all of a sudden it starts to drop and you're just like, wait, what exactly is going on? So it'll be interesting to watch this over the coming months.
Relatedly, there has been some sales or like on the, I guess we could say on the website Alibaba where you can purchase things, right? There have been some Nintendo Switch 2 compatible like cases and screen protectors that people have noted coming out. Whether these are real or official or based on real information is somewhat speculative, but either way, it seems like people are running with the Nintendo Switch 2 name / branding. And I'd be curious what y'all think about these pictures and what is this people trying to get ahead of something with knowledge or without knowledge? What do y'all think?
Without knowledge. I do not think any of these are like true to spec. I think Alibaba is a very sketchy marketplace when it comes to certain things. And like these people just know it's coming and they're trying to trick people into just buying their shit. Like that's my gut feeling. I don't know. Maybe they do have some insider information, but I highly doubt it.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I mean, you know, Alibaba is like a legitimate, you know, it's like a legitimate place where you can buy goods and services. But that said, it is also like a place where stuff is like drop shipped and where there is often, you know, lots and lots and lots of little tiny cheap things that anybody can just throw up in the hopes that like somebody buys something. You know what I mean?
Just like Amazon and Walmart, right? Like
exactly, yeah. But kind of take it even to the next level, right? So you're right in that it probably is just somebody trying to be an opportunist here. You know, there's a chance that it is a legitimate third party seller of these kind of accessories and they're just trying to get ahead of everybody else and they do have the specs. But either way, I mean, there's been so much smoke about what these specs are and everything we've seen has been corroborating that fact. Now, whether that just means people are just copying the leaks that everybody's already heard and it's all just kind of made up, it's whatever, but it's not going to cost, you know, a company that's making tempered glass screen protectors that much more to make one that's 8 inches instead of 7 for the OLED or whatever, right? To like have like a different size spec for this thing, right? And the off chance that it blows up. And then, you know, and then if all these specs are true, then they're the first to market and they'll be getting more eyes on their product. So either way, it's kind of cool to see. It's getting me excited. I like seeing the size difference between different screen protectors and the actual cases and stuff. So I just hope this is real.
We're going to continue on with the rumor train here. And the next one is Kirby Planet Robobot. I guess this is coming from Nate the Hate that sometime next year, presumably early next year, I would be my guess. But this game, which was a 3DS game, is going to be ported over to the Switch. I don't know if anybody else has said this or if it's just from Nate. I don't know if y'all know anything about that, but he's generally right, especially when he's this confident. I feel like he's always right, but he's always kind of confident. That's kind of his style.
Yeah, he's very like, he'll say like, this is speculation and this is rumor and this is something that I think might happen. And then sometimes he'll be like, this is happening. You know, and this was one of those times. I did listen to the podcast that he did with friend of the show, MVG. It came out just a couple days ago. But yeah, he's one of those guys that like as soon as he says anything, all the different news platforms all pick it up and start running with it, right? For better or for worse. But I would say this is pretty likely. And honestly, if this is true, I'm very excited just because I love seeing 3DS games ported to the Switch. Did you play this game, Jordan?
No, I wanted to. It's like I didn't play either of the 2D platforming Kirby games for the 3DS. One of my big blind spots on the system. But it does just give me hope. I really would love to see Samus Returns ported to the Switch at some point because that game is awesome and it came out so late in the 3DS life cycle. I don't think it really got the attention it deserved. So just seeing that they're still continuing to port 3DS games like makes me excited for that possibility in the future.
Valarie, were you a 3DS player? Did you play a lot of 3DS back in the day?
Yeah, it was mostly Nintendogs. And 64. But yeah, mostly Nintendogs. I actually was just teaching my 10-year-old cousin how to play Nintendogs, and I realized how much knowledge I retained since I last played it, and I told him all the good info on that game.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one that needs to come back. And it's also funny. It's like, it's funny, like, especially now that the 3DS eShop is closed, how long ago the 3DS feels, but it's really not that long ago. You know what I mean? Like a lot of these games, I'm like, man, it'd be so great to bring these games back. And it's like, oh, it came out like 8 years ago or something like that. It's not that long. It just feels like ancient at this point.
Yeah, Robobot was 8 years ago. It makes me wonder too, real quickly, not to go off on too big of a tangent. Like, this seems like a place for them to mine a couple more games, like you said, Jordan, to flesh out the rest of the Switch era. Anything else?
Including Nintendogs plus cats.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll see. Yeah,
I think it's great. I really do hope they bring back a lot of 3DS games and DS games for that matter, if not just so that there are single screen versions of a lot of these games that came out. You know, I think a big reason that we don't see more 3DS and DS games coming out is because they were designed around this very specific tech that Nintendo was using for these consoles, and they just don't work very well on modern systems, you know, like the Castlevania games and the Mega Man like ZX collection and everything like that. Like they had little workarounds. We've got the bottom screen in the corner, but it's like unsightly and doesn't feel good, you know? So I think like Nintendo kind of like making bespoke single screen versions of these games where like that second screen is maybe a menu you can toggle to, I think is really good for game preservation going forward, especially if we're going to keep seeing, you know, libraries moving forward through generations with further iterations of the Switch going forward. I just think that's a good thing.
Well, we'll move on to our next bit of this sort of rumor section here, and that is that Valve is making a Steam home console. They obviously toyed with this a while back, about 10 years ago or so. Mm-hmm. But there's rumors now that they are once again looking at making some sort of box home console machine, perhaps following the success or relative success of the Steam Deck, which is really funny if it's true, because it's like everyone else is talking about getting out of making consoles for PC because of PC gaming, and then Valve is seeing an opportunity, maybe, I don't know, because of their big library. What do you any thoughts on this? Do you think it's real? Do you think it's a good idea if it is?
I think they definitely have a leg up on a lot of these other consoles just because of the legacy that Steam has on PC. And if they could make a nice console that is a little cheaper, they've also just been pushing compatibility with their accounts for forever. So it's just seamless. I mean, I think Xbox is pretty much there at this point as well. I'm not quite sure how Sony is. I know it's a little bit like more convoluted, kind of, if I remember correctly, but I mean, they just have the legacy of, you have your Steam account, you have all your games, they all still work, you all still just have them in that one place. And that's the only reason I think that this could be true, because people would buy it.
Yeah, I think there's a couple reasons why this is true. First of all, like, if you guys haven't, or if you don't follow like Valve leakers on YouTube, I really recommend you look into some of that stuff, because every time like a new version of Source is updated or something, people comb through the data in order to like find clues about what might be coming next. And there are tons of breadcrumbs that you can follow that pretty much confirm that they're working on new hardware and confirm they're working on new things for Half-Life 3 and all this different kind of stuff. It's actually a pretty fascinating rabbit hole to dive into if you ever feel like doing that kind of thing on YouTube. But, you know, this is one of several new pieces of hardware that has been rumored to be coming from Valve. You know, one is also the Deckard, which is meant to be their next VR headset, which I think a lot of people are assuming is going to be another standalone headset to kind of go alongside, you know, the Meta Quest, which I think is a great direction for them to go into, kind of like the Steam Deck of VR. That sounds really fascinating and interesting to me. That might get me back into VR personally, just knowing how well they handled the Steam Deck. But, you know, just a couple of the things about this. I think, you know, Valve, they are happy to put out hardware. And even if they take a loss on it, and even if it doesn't sell a ton of units, it doesn't really matter to them, because they're making all their money from the Steam store, you know? So like, they're happy to see like all these handheld PCs blowing up right now, because it just means more platforms for people to buy Steam games. You know what I mean? And so every Steam game sold, they're getting a cut from, right? So them undercutting everybody with cheap hardware that they're taking a loss on, that's like, they don't really give a shit about that, right? They just like seeing the whole momentum moving forward of people following suit on what they're doing, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think like, getting more people who are in the console space on Steam buying games, who then think maybe a couple of years later, I don't want a console, now I want a PC, and or that might convince people to do that, or
yeah. Or like, if it's been kind of toyed around of like them putting Steam on like Xbox Series X's, like they've talked about that in the past. Valve would love that. You know what I mean? Obviously, I don't know why Microsoft would do that, but still, I mean, that kind of thing would be really great for them. And I think that's obviously where they're trying to move going forward. And I think the other thing I wanted to say is, a lot of people have been talking, and you brought it up, Patrick, about Steam machines, and that was about almost 10 years ago that they announced that. And they even brought that up recently, that next year will be the 10-year anniversary of them announcing the Steam machines. I think that those failed back then because they were Linux boxes and there was no Proton, right? Like back then they were like, hey, we're putting out these Steam machines. They all run Linux, and I know most games run on Windows, so please make Linux ports of your games. And game developers were like, no, we're not going to do that. Nobody's buying Steam machines, so we're not going to like spend all the time and resources. But since then, we're in a different world now. Like Steam Deck runs on Linux, but they built their own compatibility layer to run Windows games flawlessly, right? So we're in a totally different world right now, to where if they put a bunch of money into a set-top box, like an actual console that sits under your TV, and it costs the same amount as a Steam Deck, but they put that extra money towards making it more powerful, making it run more modern games, and it doesn't have to, have an OLED screen and have all this stuff that makes it like usable as a handheld console. I think they do a lot better this go around, and people would actually buy these things to kind of go alongside their Steam Deck, right? So either way, I think it's an interesting time, and I can't wait to see what they do with hardware, because whenever Valve actually puts their mind towards hardware, I think they do some really interesting stuff.
Okay, well, next couple items are about some stuff that's coming up this week. So we'll just maybe briefly mention them. Game Awards. The Game Awards is happening on December 12th. I feel like there's been notably, maybe it's just us, among folks, a little bit of a less interest in the Game Awards this year, but I think that's not just us. I think it's a general thing happening. But here's your last chance to make any wild predictions or discuss it. I do have one. I really think this is like a conspiracy theory, but I think Balatro is going to win Best Game.
Really?
And I think they're going to do it because of all of this sort of pushback against the DLC and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, if it happens, like, I think it's maybe gonna prove it's rigged or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they were like, everybody's mad that we added Shadow of the Erd Tree, and they're like talking bad about the Game Awards. Let's throw them a curveball or whatever.
Yeah.
I might be with you on that. I think it's literally either going to be Balatro or Shadow of the Erd Tree, but I feel like they're just trying to be like, we support independent game development, and then they give it to Balatro for that reason. Can y'all remind me who, like, so 10% of it is player votes, and then 90% of it is who makes up the rest of the voting?
The voting block is made up mostly of like journalists and critics and stuff like that, and people from different like publications.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen. If it did happen, that'd be really funny. But it's like, I would also be pissed, because it's like,
right.
they every year they nominate one indie, and it's like, this indie represents all indies. And it's just like, it's such bullshit. Like, that's not how it should go. But anyway, this is actually the first year that we're not doing a Game Awards episode. I don't know that it's like out of protest or boycotting or anything like that. It's just, we actually have another topic lined up for next week. But I'm kind of excited to not do an entire episode on the Game Awards this year. I think this year I just have zero excitement for it. I mean, I'm definitely going to watch it because I like seeing the announcements. But I think we'd be better suited to cover something like the DICE Awards this year.
Well, the other thing that's happening this week is Secret Level, the Amazon show that's going to highlight a bunch of different video game franchises. And what I kind of thought was an anthology, but I'm not entirely sure after watching that trailer a while back because it all felt like it might tie in. But one thing that's kind of come out now and we have info on is sort of the release schedule and what episodes are based on what games, or at least I've seen that recently. It sounds like we're going to get 8 episodes in just a couple days on December 10th. And then there's going to be another 8 on December 17th. Yeah, I don't know. Are you guys excited about this show? Do you care about it at all? Shrugging your shoulders there, Jordan?
I don't know. Like I read through, what franchises are going to be represented, and like it's interesting the mix that they picked. Like, but there's only certain ones that are going to appeal to me. Like, I'm kind of curious to see what they do with like a Sifu one, or maybe even like Armored Core or the Mega Man. Like the animation I saw like just doesn't strike me personally. But I'm curious to see what they do with like a Spelunky like animation. So it's cool that they're pulling certain games out, but then like I don't give a shit about New World or Unreal Tournament or Warhammer 40,000 or Dungeons and Dragons like the list goes of like I don't care. So it's like a really weird hodgepodge of the industry, but I'm curious to see it as like an alternative to video game media than just like here is an adaptation of this. It's like a more of a scatter shot, and I'm kind of curious to see how that goes.
It's got that great reviews also. Reviews have come out for it. I think it's at like a 51 on Metacritic or something like that. So I don't know what it is on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's not looking super great. It just seems, I think a lot of people are saying that. It's like some episodes are good and some episodes are just really bad, And so I think it might behoove people to watch the episodes of the franchises that they're interested in. But yeah, definitely seeing the kinds of games that are being represented here, it definitely feels like it was financially decided what sort of games they will be covering rather than it was a creative decision on what games would make the coolest episodes for a TV show.
And then moving on to our last bit of news here. It's about Ubisoft. A while back, I think it was a couple months ago, maybe even, there was some discussion that maybe Ubisoft was considering a possible buyout from Tencent and or others. And it's back in the news that this discussion is ongoing. It sounds like the Guillemonts want to retain control but sell. And Tencent, if they did get involved, would want more control. So maybe that will happen. Maybe it won't. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do we care if Ubisoft gets sold? What do you think this will happen?
Something's got to change over there. I don't know. That's all I know, because they've pretty much undervalued all their properties for far too long, where we all know you wait 6 months and you get the game for at least half off. So something over there ain't working. They're still having to lay off people. I don't really know what that change would be, but I mean, if they do sell, could be a positive thing overall, because apparently the guys running it don't really know how to steer the ship correctly. So if they get replaced, it might go in a better direction.
Yeah, the only hope for me on this is that they sell and become no longer a publicly traded corporation, you know. And I think the shareholders have not done Ubisoft any favors. I'm not trying to give a pass to the CEOs or the CEO of Ubisoft and whoever's leading the ship over there. It's not like they're doing a good job either. And as you said, Jordan, they've been stagnating for years, and there's been zero innovation happening outside of a couple projects that got punished for their innovation because of low sales and got their studios closed and everybody laid off. You know, like just the other day, 277 people were laid off between their San Francisco and Osaka offices. Right. So that's going to continue happening if a sale happens. Right. And that'll be really shitty. But also, that seems like it's going to happen anyway if the sale doesn't happen. Right. And this continues to be a publicly traded company. So I don't really know what to do about Ubisoft. I hate to be so, what's the word? Not despondent, but flippant about the fate of the company. But they've kind of primed me over the years to not give a shit about the brand that they put out, you know? So I hope the best for all the employees and the hardworking artists that work under them. And I'll be happy to see another studio go private if that's how it has to turn out.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, that's what we've got for the news this week. So we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking all about Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. We are back. And this week we are talking about Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. The online version recently shut down, but then they opened the Animal Crossing Pocket Camp complete version on December 2nd, right? For a one-time purchase of, I guess there's a discount. We can talk about all that, but that's why, Valarie, you're here because presumably you have played some Animal Crossing Pocket Camp.
Yes. It's been around 7 years and I've played for 6 of those years. And it's gotten me through a lot. So I have many thoughts.
Well, obviously you like it. Like, what could you give us the sort of the big picture? Like, are you an Animal Crossing fan before this? And then this, or did this bring you into the franchise? And then also kind of like, why'd you stick around for 6+ years? Yeah,
I think I knew of Animal Crossing. But yes, I think this was really my main introduction to the game. I think that, or the franchise in general, because I think this game, I started playing it right before New Horizon came out. And what I really enjoyed most about it was, well, I think I'm a phone game player. I think that's just something that I do. Like I play Neko Atsume a lot, for example. So I think that it's just really fit my lifestyle, like how I play games. And then I think that I really appreciated, I like tedious tasks in games. I don't know how to describe it. I like doing these repetitive, fun little tasks. And I think that game it does that a lot. And also I think the biggest draw that kept me doing Animal Crossing Pocket Camp over the years was definitely the items. It just does not compare to or New Horizons rather, does not compare to the items that are in Pocket Camp because the entire incentive to keep playing is the different types of items and things that you can create to design your camp space and whatnot. So that is just really cool items that your little Animal Crossing friends can interact with that just is not in any other type of Animal Crossing game.
Yeah, I would be like looking at you, be like, let me show you my campsite. And I would look and be like, that's a sick item. That's a sick item. I wish I had that in New Horizons. Like just the cadence of release on that was so much more because it's a mobile game and it's like, that's what's expected in that space. And like the amount of items in that game is like pretty baffling, but yeah.
I got another question for you, Valarie. Are you with this new Animal Crossing Pocket Camp complete? Are you on board with that? Or is this like, now that there's no new things coming, you're done? Or I'm curious, like, are you jumping over?
We'll have to see. I think when I first heard the news, I was obviously pretty bummed. I was pretty upset, but I didn't realize the full picture of what this would look like, what the complete would look like. And so far playing the complete, I mean, they're really trying to make, I think, the players as happy as possible. They've been very, just giving a lot of little freebies or really fun items it felt very conclusive to the whole leading to not having the original version anymore. You were able to give a letter to your favorite character as a thank you. And they're able to give you a very, very like sweet, conclusive farewell type of idea, I suppose. And then they also had a cake. They love cakes in this whole series. So a little fun, little inclusive pop. Yeah. So there's a little Pocket Camp cake that you could get. There's even a tree. You get a little tree that grows over time. And it's supposed to be the memorial tree of the game. Just all these little tidbits that make you as a player feel like, okay, this is ending, but it'll be okay. Kind of, they're really trying to do that. But anyway, whenever the complete version came out, though, so what I'm trying to say is that right now it's like peak time because it's also holiday season. So there's all these holiday items available right now. It's really easy to collect items right now. And the rollout is, my understanding, is going to actually be throughout the year. So it's not going to just dead stop. They're still going to roll out some new items for the next few months. and then eventually it will end, and they'll stop putting out new items. So we will see what how I feel, I guess, in 6 months' time from now, if I still want to keep playing. Honestly, I probably will still want to keep playing, just because it's become such an inherent habit of mine. So I don't know. We'll see. But so far, I am still enjoying it, the complete version. Yeah.
I didn't realize they were adding new stuff to this version. That is a smart move. I'm sorry, David, you were going to say something, but I'm just impressed.
I also didn't know that. I'm also really impressed with how they've been handling all of this, and what you were saying about there's a tree that memorializes the game, and they're doing all these kind of in-universe, in-character things to kind of shepherd in the new version of this game. That's something that I think that this development team at Nintendo does particularly really, really well. And I'm not sure that this is the same team that made New Horizons, and it's probably a little bit different, but I'm sure it's at least overseen by a lot of the same team that does both this and Splatoon, our other games, as another game series that I think also does this kind of thing really well. When there are in-universe events or kind of meta things that happen to the game in general, they always kind of like give an in-universe reason as to why it's happening, and I think it's something that really endears the fans to these characters even further, and sometimes that can be to the game's detriment too. Like if you look at like New Horizons, like sometimes it's like, man, yeah, it's so immersive that like, this like pilot is giving me a huge monologue instead of just opening up a menu telling me what island I want to go to. But I do kind of just want to go to the fucking island. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's like, but still it's nice. And it really, I think, adds so much to the world and adds so much to the lasting charm of these kinds of games, right?
Yes, I do a lot of click, moving on from our conversation, moving on. Like I don't even read what they say anymore. But yes, I definitely did used to read it at length when I was trying to get to know these little characters, I suppose.
I do have a question, especially, I mean, you were talking about how, there was so much doled out over the years when Pocket Camp was an ever-evolving game before this complete version has released. It almost seems like the prime person for this, $10 release right now is somebody who never played Pocket Camp, because they'll basically have, 6 or 7 years worth of content to look forward to with this new version. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that I have seen some conversations of people in like the Reddit subreddit channel about this, and the new players are very excited, also probably fairly overwhelmed. There's a lot on the game. That was Jordan's experience when he downloaded it recently, and he was asking me a plethora of questions. And it's just, there's a lot of stuff that happened from, if you haven't played in 4 or 5 years, there's a lot of little tidbits and a lot of different ways of making money in the game too. That if it's kind of like, if you have to kind of slowly figure it out. So I guess in some sense it's more catered, I think, to new players in that way. But I think that people who've been playing a long time, they get a lot of leeway because you can carry over stuff that you've gathered. So I have, several million bells. So I can use all of that for all of these complete items that I now have access to, because now I have access to the entire catalog. So people have been playing for a long time. They can get those things that they haven't seen in like 4 or 5 years that they really wanted in their collection. So
I know that every Animal Crossing game is similar, but usually there's a different framing, right? And I'm curious about this game. Obviously, it's called Pocket Camp, and I know there's some sort of camp-like element to it. But Valarie, could you maybe explain what the central premise is of this game, and if there's anything unique about that?
Yeah, so you have a campsite. You have a campsite. When it was originally rolling out, there was more tents and those type of features where you actually have a tent for your little characters that they'll live in this little campsite. It's definitely changed over the years, but that's the basis, is that it's a campsite. You even have an RV type vehicle that you use to travel around the campsite, and you could design that RV. It's 2 stories, or it's up to 2 stories. And then eventually they added a cabin. So you have your campsite, you have your RV camper, and then you also have a cabin that has up to 3 stories. So there's a lot of space to design. At least there has been over the course of playing it. And then there's also a feature called where you essentially have a camp helper. I forgot the exact term, but I think of them as like your little buddy, where you get to designate one Animal Crossing character to be your helper, who will collect items for you or on behalf of you when you're away from the game. So that's also kind of fun. But that's the main premise. And in your camp as well, your campsite, you also have a garden. So you can still do flower type of activities as well, where you grow flowers and you can get little bugs. You catch bugs from the flowers, and then those bugs then give you other items. And I think that's the main basis. And you essentially just drive around your little RV to these little islands that have different purposes. And then you design your campsite. That's essentially it. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, it might be interesting to hear a little bit about what it was like playing when you had to buy things. Did you spend money on this game? And I mean, you don't have to give an exact amount, but was it a regular thing? Or,
please tell us exactly how deep the well went. Are you a whale? Yeah.
Yeah. No, actually, I'm one of, I don't know if this is rare or not, but I have not spent any money on Pocket Camp except for buying the Pocket Camp Complete, like the $10 Pocket Camp Complete.
Wow.
That was for this month at least. And then it'll be up to $20 later in January. But anyway, I for somehow, some way, I avoided that throughout the entire gameplay. I think that was just more just me being a very frugal person. But I do know that there's people on, again, the subreddit, for example, who were, they've spent thousands of dollars. And I think that's actually pretty common for phone games. People spend a lot of money on phone games. So I think
whales, right? And like Fire Emblem Heroes has major whales that just spend and spend and spend and spend for characters. That's why it's funny when a game comes out and it's like the complete version and it's like $20. It's like, it's kind of crazy.
Could have waited a couple of years.
Yeah, but it's like you said, it's the experience. And I think it's also speaks to the kind of gamer that you are, Valarie, that, like you said, you like repetitive tasks, you like the kind of, the daily check-in and stuff like that. Like that's kind of like how Animal Crossing has always been meant to be played. I think that a lot of people were really upset with how little content New Horizons had, but that's because when New Horizons came out, we had nothing else to do other than play Animal Crossing New Horizons because we were all stuck at home during the pandemic, and people just like binged that game incredibly quickly when really you're meant to do a little bit at a time, right?
Yes.
So I wonder if that'll be the case now that Complete is out as well, or if people are also going to mainline this game all in one sitting.
That's very possible. But I think for people like me who have been playing it for a long time, I think they'll probably stick with it. That's my guess.
But can I ask Jordan? Now, I mean, you've been playing for a few days. Had you played the game before this, or is this your first foray? Because I played Pocket Camp like back when it first came out, and then kind of bounced off it pretty quickly, especially after New Horizons came out. I was looking for more of like a gamified experience. But what's your experience right now playing Complete since its release?
So I played the game when it first came out, and I probably played till I got to like level 38. So I don't really know how long that takes. I probably had about 20 animals that I had interacted with. And, I think I bounced off because I got a pretty good slice of the game. And I was like, okay, I know what this game is going to be like. I know they're going to keep releasing like content at a cadence. I don't feel like spending any money on this game. And I don't feel like spending my time doing this over and over again to get the items that I want. So I'm just going to get, and then, they had announced New Horizons. And so I was like, okay, I'll just wait for that or whatever. And I enjoyed it but when I came back, like I opened the game and I was like, okay, this is all so completely different than what I was playing. Like it has some of the same things, but it just there's like, here's a new thing, and then it'll like a block of text. Here's a new thing, and then a block of text. Here's a new thing and a block of text. And Valerie's like, yeah, you're supposed to have done this like as it came out. You're not supposed to be just like jumping in. But luckily, it's like nothing too crazy complicated. So I've been able to kind of like figure it out. But also I have an encyclopedia living with me. So I just say, hey, Valarie, what am I supposed to do here? And so she's been helping me out, like figure out all like the little nuances of the features that I missed in the 6 years that I did not play the game. But that being said, there's just like, as a new player is probably a really good time to jump in because there's all these like tasks and completion tasks that I have never done that are now accessible to me. And so I can just collect a bunch of shit all at once. And just use that to like buy some of the items, even though I don't have like access to the cool items or the coolest items yet. It's like I am now able to just kind of gather faster. I don't know if it's faster than someone who's been playing for a long time, but yeah, it's like a lot to sink your teeth into and kind of like wrap your head around. So I've been enjoying it so far. I think my favorite feature is the fact that you can see like literally every item that's been put in the game. There's this like section, it says like complete collection, and you can like look through every collection. And there's something in the game, and Valarie, I want to know what you think, because I think it's really cool because they have this thing called complete tickets, and one complete ticket will get you one furniture item from the complete collection. So you can look through the entire collection and be like, oh, okay, I have like 7 out of 11 of these items. I want to like finish this collection out. And the complete tickets are kind of rare. It's like probably the most rare currency, I think, at this point.
Yes, yeah.
But it's like, is it good for you, Valarie? Is it good for you so that you can actually like finalize some of the collections that you've been missing out on?
Yes, definitely. There's certain item, like for example, you can an example of a complete item would be like an actual character that you could have on your island. So for example, Gulliver, you can have Gulliver permanently like on your island as an item that you can place on your island, or sorry, your campsite rather. And so he can just be permanently laying there on the ground with if you wanted him to. And so there's other characters like that too. So now I can have KK Slider permanently playing music at my camp, and that's nice. That's nice. It's nice because it's part of that complete set. And then previously that cost several like maybe 200, 300 leaf tickets, and leaf tickets were very rare. And then that was usually what people spent their money on. And so now that I never spent money, I can get those items that I kind of just accepted I would never have access to earlier in the game. Yeah.
That's cool. So there are 0 microtransactions in this. Is that correct? Complete?
I have not seen a single one. No, it's just a flat out fee and that's it.
That's great.
Yeah. And I think we didn't talk about this, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but I know a lot of speculation about that choice is that it's because of laws and initiatives, and especially in like Europe and stuff, to have it be so that, you know, games that are online have an offline version and stuff like that. And so there's some people that speculated that this was Nintendo kind of trying something to get ahead of that. I don't know if that's true or not, but
yeah, I mean, that's a lot of the speculation with this release for sure. I think it's funny too that they've kind of circled back to a $10 release, will be $20 eventually. Because when Nintendo started, their first mobile game was Super Mario Run, which was released for $10, and it was kind of a flop. You know, I think they expected it to be this huge new market that they're jumping into. And then they're like, oh, no, wait, nobody wants to pay $10 for a mobile app, right? And then they kind of quickly realized that and started pumping out a lot of these kind of free-to-play games. And that kind of also got into that era where they were doing free-to-play games on the 3DS as well, which was a very strange time for Nintendo. But it's sort of funny to see them circle back to this. It makes me wonder like how many copies of this game will sell. I kind of can't see Pocket Camp Complete doing crazy numbers, just because probably I feel like a lot of the people that wanted to play this game have already played it, you know, and maybe have moved on. Or just new players just still aren't going to be enticed by that thing. But it would be interesting to see like if over time there has become more of an appetite for more complete versions and less microtransactions, or if gamers have just been primed out the wazoo to just play free-to-play games with lots of microtransactions. So I really want to see the numbers on this if they ever publish those, but I kind of doubt they will.
I don't know, man. When I went to go download it from the Apple store, it was the number one game, like paid game. So like I feel like this game is going to do.
It's the number one paid. So it was in its own, number one on its own paid list, is what you're saying. Yeah,
there's like the free to play games, and then there's a paid, like there's 2 different charts, basically. Got it. One for free to play games, one for paid games. And so like for me, I'm like, I think my incentive is, I know I would rather pay $10 flat out for a game than be like, oh, I'm going to spend $1,000 in this game over the course of 6 years, you know? So
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of people like that out there that are like, oh, I didn't want to get into this because I feel like it was going to be microtransaction laden and I wasn't going to be able to get all the cool things that I wanted. I feel like this honestly is going to do pretty well for them. Maybe it won't do as well as parsing out all the transactions over a long period of time out of people.
Right.
Or in Valerie's case, never at all. $0 spent. Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like it's going to do, I think it's going to do pretty well, honestly. And there's a lot of buzz on it online about how well it's been treating the players. It's been treating them with like respect as opposed to mobile games that just cut out and they're like, sorry, all that money you spent doesn't really mean anything now. The game's gone forever. Bye. You know? Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Like, I feel like that's how most mobile games treat their player base. So I don't know. I think that like positive interaction with the player base, it will help carry it to better sales.
I hope that's true. And I hope that this is some sort of turning point back towards that, but I don't think that's going to be true. But man, wouldn't it be great if everybody's like, kind of like how people are fed up with streaming services and like, this costs us more than cable. Same thing here.
I'm curious if there's any other games that Nintendo could do this with, or if they would want to, you know, like for instance, you know, I'm thinking Mario Kart Tour, you know, that is a game that had loot boxes in it, and, you know, they aren't doing any new content for that either. But that game is like still out there and you can still pay microtransactions for it, right? To do those loot boxes, to get those drops. So, you know, it's probably still making them money having that game around, even though they're not putting out new content for it. I wonder if it would behoove them to do a complete version of that game where you can just unlock all the characters without having to pay anything over time, or if that would be, you know, if like people that actually spent all the money would just be really pissed off. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm just curious how, if they can do that going forward, or if this is more of an experiment for Nintendo, or if they have like plans, you know, like I would have loved to have seen them continue, like have a version of Miitomo, you know, that I could like continue to play now. Like, I say that you can download Miitomo now. It's kind of like a weird hack version that uses its own servers, but it doesn't do like the daily drops like it used to have, right? And like the cool photos that you would get to post with your me, but stuff like that, you know, it's. Do you guys think that there are other games they could do this with? Like, we're going to see Dragalia Lost come back?
I was thinking of Dragalia Lost because that's, I think, a game that just went offline. Like, any money you spent on it just gone into the ether. I feel like they could probably figure out a way to do it with Fire Emblem Heroes, but that game makes so much money for them that they are going to try to keep that online as long as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And, that's the one in my gut, but that's the one I could see them actually doing. Dragalia Lost is gone forever. That's never coming back, and there's never going to be another Dragalia Lost ever, I don't think. But
going back just to Pocket Camp for a second, I'm kind of curious because we talk about, you know, this new game is complete and has everything, but presumably there's some sort of things that are missing in terms of the online element, right? And Valarie, maybe you can tell us what it is missing and if that stuff is or was important to you.
Yeah, most of the stuff that is missing is any kind of interaction with other players. And other interaction with other players, even before it went to complete, was not, there wasn't a lot. Essentially, you can add people to your list of friends. There's certain tasks that were associated with, like, it was helpful to have friends. It wasn't 100% necessary to play the game, but it exponentially helped you in completing tasks and getting certain items. So some things like, for example, different campsites had different types of fruit. So then you could sell fruit to other players. You can look at other people's campsites in the original version. So the original version, you could go to people's RVs or their campsite and check out their designs. You can't do that in this version. Trying to think some other things. There's also, for example, just helping with tasks. You could help other people with completing certain tasks, and you can't do that now. Now it's basically, if you get a friend, if you do add someone as a friend, which they created cards essentially, like every player has a card that you can
like
get a
QR code
for.
Yeah,
exactly. And then you can add them as a friend, and any kind of interaction you have with that character is not actual interaction with that person. It's just kind of random. So for example, like if you requested to help you go to the mine, the quarry field, it would just be like a random, whether or not they'd agree to go with you or not, was just kind of it's just randomized basically. Like there's no actual interaction with people. It's just a facade that you're interacting with people, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
I definitely thought there was more actual, because I saw people sharing their cards and I was like, oh, okay. So there is like still a bit of online to this game, but it's really just like, maybe it's more like new Denpament where you like, you like collect these things, but then it just like you add people in real life, but then it just adds to virtual helpers in the game. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jordan might be able to explain it better than me, but yeah.
No, I mean, that's right. And I think it's really interesting that we figured out, because we're both playing, like your camper cards don't update. So I don't know if that means it doesn't connect to any servers or what, but so like Valarie and I added each other's camper cards, and then she changed her outfit. She leveled up. I leveled up. I changed my outfit just to see if our camper cards would update on each other's games, and it does not. So the camper card is even just a snapshot of your character at that moment in time when you shared your card. That does not update at all.
Okay, so all the information on how you set your character up, the way it looks, the name of your character and everything is all just built into that QR code data.
I would assume so, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Wow.
So
that is definitely a downside to this version of the game.
I would definitely say so. I think people who really enjoyed that feature, who liked interacting with other people, that's a big bummer and it's a big con. I was not someone who really did that a lot. So not that, I mean, I did it for the purpose of helping me throughout the game, but it wasn't something that I didn't really honestly go to a lot of people's campsites to visit. No offense to these people's creativity, but I just didn't really care. So that just wasn't like my main thing. But for some people, that was their main thing. They loved going to other people's campsites and checking out their creativity and whatnot. So that is definitely a con, of the complete.
There's also a couple pros. There's one thing that they added to the game that wasn't, and Valarie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can now import your designs from Animal Crossing's New Horizons into Pocket Camp. So like they added some functionality to where like you can make a design on New Horizons and then bring it into Pocket Camp. And like, can you tell me a little bit how that works?
Yes, that's actually really cool. I think that's probably one of my favorite new features. I haven't done it yet myself. But yeah, if you have a shirt design, if you have, maybe footprint design that you want to put on the ground of your camp that's from New Horizon, you can do that. You can transfer over anything you create in New Horizon as far as that goes, like clothing design or ground design, and you can pull that over into the Pocket Camp. I think that's actually really cool. And that's one thing that, I won't be able to see in game is how people get creative with that. But, you can go online to see this kind of stuff too. So that's part of it too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you have to take some stuff. Well, I was going to say, well, this is like a bonus and blah, 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 but it's not. Like it is a game that we paid for. You know what I mean? Like it's a game that you have to buy, but it does have a lot of content obviously built in that you can like have permanently, which is great. But it does feel like this is very much like a olive branch sort of release, and also sort of maybe holding people over, until whatever next Animal Crossing for the Switch 2 does come out, And I think in that way it's probably pretty successful. But yeah, like you said, I think Animal Crossing is definitely a game that does well when people go on the subreddit and like check out all the cool designs and do stuff like that. Yep. And so I think it having a long life here where people can get even more creative with their builds will hopefully at least get people talking about the game more and picking it up. And that's probably all part of their marketing strategy as well for this thing.
Yep. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's also like cool to see them like tap into like the designs that have come out over the years, because there are like an entire website. I think it's like AC Patterns, where they're just like patterns from New Horizons that players have like uploaded that you can download. So now you're going to be able to like bring those into Pocket Camp. So it's like they're tapping into the community that already exists and then just giving them the like ability to bring it into this game as well. And I think like, yeah, what you said is an olive branch. Like that's a beautiful olive branch because all the players that are like super into this are going to be just like ecstatic to even have at least something positive. And it's like when you're taking away some things.
What from Animal Crossing Pocket Camp would you like to see implemented into a new console Animal Crossing game?
I do think that the camp helper feature, where you have a designated Animal Crossing character that does some of the work for you, I think that that's an interesting feature because you get to level up on your heart level, so to speak, with that character, and then you get to then have more abilities of things you can do with that character. So, example, if the further you heart the character, you can then they request different items that are specific to them, and then you can get those items.
So you can have
Idea.
a character help you do tasks, right?
Yes. So your camper can help you go fishing. Your camper can help you gather fruits and bugs. They can do all that work for you while you're away, basically.
So the next game is going to be like Animal Crossing Factorio, right? Like,
Yeah.
like making,
Or Animal Crossing Pilot Quest for all the UFO 50s. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, what about you, Jordan? Having had some experience with it and also having played a lot of New Leaf and stuff like that. What would you like to see going forward in another console Animal Crossing game?
Yeah, I think my biggest complaint about New Horizons was the like lack of interesting items because like New Leaf, they had those, I think it was fortune cookies in that as well, where you open it up and it's like a Nintendo specific item. It's like you get the Master Sword or you get like a Metroid thing. And like they just had a whole collection of just like Nintendo specific things that were like all really sick items to have. In addition to kind of like your standard Animal Crossing fare. And I think like in New Horizons, they just like didn't have that. They tried to keep it more grounded and like based in reality almost to where I was like, this is just like not as interesting. So coming into Pocket Camp, you know, after not having played for like 6 years and seeing just like the breadth of items and like the style of items and the way that the characters interact with it and the animations you get of characters interacting with these items, I would love to see that more because in Animal Crossing New Horizons, they kind of just like walk around your island. But like this one, there's like there's like a little mobile bookstore and a character will be reading the book outside of it. Or like, you know, they have like specific animations for every single item. And so just bringing that idea into it would be really sick.
You know what? Now that Jordan said that, I agree. Items. I want some cool, badass items in other types of playing this game. Like, for example, they did like collaborations. So they did Sanrio collaboration with some of the items. They would do a Mario's collaboration with some of the items. You could have your bunny with a Mario nose and a mustache or something like that. Like just derpy little things like that were really fun. I think that I want to see more of that and keep doing that. The stuff is fun and cute to play around with.
I'm also curious, because now that we're talking about sequels, could you see them releasing another Animal Crossing game with the same kind of free-to-play model in the future? Like, or is this kind of idea tapped out for a mobile game? Like, could you see ways that they could kind of expand on this? You know, now they've got like the version of this game that's like complete and you can pay for it. But could you see them kind of tapping back into the well in the future?
I don't know, but one thing, I don't know if this really answers your question, but I did think about one feature that they're trying out in Pocket Camp which is the AR video feature, where you can have you can designate an animal to be somewhere in your actual living space or wherever you are and have it floating on like a item, and then you can rotate it and take a picture of it and interact with it in that way. And I thought that was really interesting, and that seems very unique to Pocket Camp. And I don't know where that could go, but I do wonder if there's something there with that. I don't think the feature is really, it doesn't work very well right now, to be honest. I do wonder if that could be something in the future of how you interact with these characters.
Maybe once Nintendo releases their AR goggles, we'll get a fully first-person Animal Crossing game.
Yeah, Nintendo has wanted to do stuff with AR for a long time. I mean, like 3DS had cameras on it and they were doing AR stuff on there. And even when you bought the system came with AR cards. So, I mean, I think that could be like something going forward if they put a camera on the Super Switch, which I honestly kind of think is likely. I think that thing's going to have a camera and a microphone and will like be able to do certain things that the Switch was not able to do. But yeah, definitely would be cool to see some like AR functionality for sure.
Well, I think we should head towards closing this out. If there's anything, y'all want to make sure and squeeze in, but I think there's a question on here that I'm interested in. If you know, Valarie, because it sounds like you visit the subreddit and kind of, have a little bit of an awareness of other people. Are people happy in general with this transition to your knowledge? Not that you're, can speak for everybody, but
I'm a cultural expert on the ECP community.
Yeah, you're our ambassador. Yeah.
I am not. I don't cruise enough to really fully grasp how everyone feels. But I will say overall, what I have seen as positive overall. There's also the whole community of people who make entire social media accounts designated to their camps as well, and that has also been pretty positive from my knowledge. I think the people are bummed about the lack of ability to interact with other people. That is probably the most downside. But overall, I think everyone's just excited to have the ability to get all these new items that they never were able to get before, or at least be more easily able to get those items than they have been before, without having to spend all the money that they may or may not have spent. Yeah.
Well, then I think that's going to do it then for our discussion on Animal Crossing Pocket Camp and its transition to being complete. If you're an Animal Crossing Pocket Camp player out there, definitely, let us know what you think about this transition and where you stand on it.
And drop your camper card into the Discord, please, so that I can have a snapshot of you appear in mine.
Yeah, so give Jordan the illusion that he has friends.
Yes, please.
Cool. Well, with that, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the games we've been playing recently. So David's been talking about this game forever, and I bought it because of his recommendation a while back, but I finally fired up UFO 50.
Wow.
Let's fucking go.
And I get it now. I bought it and I've been just kind of like almost afraid to play it because it's like, I keep hearing David talk about it. But I was like, you know what? I've been spending so much time working and I'm sick and I need to just do something to relax. So I played this. I've played about the first 6 or so games.
Oh, okay. You're trying to go chronologically.
I am a weird stickler for stuff like that. So yeah, I can't jump ahead. I can't. I did introduce my son to it today, and I know he probably has no qualms about stuff like that. So I'm afraid that he will be like, I played this one. Check it out. And I'll be like, no, okay. But yeah, so I really have I started with, Barbuda's the first one. And I played, I really was convinced that I was going to give them all a really fair shake. So I tried to play quite a bit of Barbuda before I was like, you know what? What's next?
Yeah, that is completely fair. Barbuda, if you're not familiar, Barbuda is intentional. It's the earliest release from this company back in 1981 or whatever. And it is very technically limited. It is sort of made bad on purpose.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I actually like it and I know I want to come back to it, but it was man, this requires patience and focus and
drawing your own map
and a lot of mistakes and redoing things, right? And I was like, it's late at night. I wanted to just kind of have fun. So not that it wasn't fun. I actually gave it way more time than I would have maybe if I had realized what I should have done, which is then I just went to the next one and tried that for a few minutes and was like, this is not my style of game. So I went to the next one and tried that for a while. But I think where I really got stuck, and I'll shut up, and really found my groove was Mortal. Because it's like, holy crap, this is a brilliant idea with live systems. If you listen to this podcast long enough, you've heard me complain about lives in video games in the modern era, new Nintendo platformers having lives where you die and then you just continue. And what is the point? Wow, Mortal takes the idea of lives and makes it really an interesting game mechanic. I don't want to spoil it, but basically you have to use lives, you have to die to progress, and that's such a brilliant idea. So you have to do it strategically, right?
I think you can kind of talk a little bit more about the mechanic. It's basically like you have a set number of like worshipers of this like god or something like that are ready to like sacrifice themselves in order to complete levels, and you kind of have to try to complete the levels with as many guys left over as possible in order to get to the end. It's kind of like a Lemmings-ish sort of game, but with more platforming. And then the kind of like really fun part of that game for me, Patrick, is like, you know, because all the lives that you have at the end of a stage carry over to the next stage.
Yeah, I was a little bit terrified once I realized that, and I was like, "Wow, do I need to go back and restart?" You know what I mean? Like,
yes is the answer. Yeah, I feel like the ultimate like replayability of that game is like going back and min-maxing and trying to get your best, and then that way it makes the next level even easier to complete. Right?
Yeah,
that is a really special game. Yeah.
Well, anyway, so I've been enjoying what I have done so far in UFO 50, and that's the one that really has grabbed me. So that's what
I'm so happy. Every time I see your little Steam thing be like, Pedix is playing UFO 50, I like stand up and do a little jig. And, yeah, I don't know if you saw but I've been sending you little messages every time you start that game. I don't know if you're seeing that. But
I don't think I have, because I've been playing
I'm like, I'm like, hey, and then you just never respond.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't think I even saw I don't even know how to see like those messages on Steam Deck.
They just like pop up. Maybe you don't have it enabled. But anyway, I'll keep going here because I could just continue to talk about UFO 50. But I'll move on. I have been playing mostly 1000 times resist. I improperly referred to this game as 1000x resist last week. It is 1000 times resist. I actually looked up how to pronounce it. This is, I talked about it last week. It's a story-based narrative game, and I am not finished with it. I'm going to try to, I think, actually just blast through the rest of it today. But man, I am in love with this game. This game is absolutely incredible. It's telling a story that I don't think you could really tell properly outside of a video game. Like, I suppose you could make a movie or a book out of this, but it kind of plays with game form as a way to tell the story. And it's also just a completely unique storytelling experience, unlike anything I've ever experienced before. Like, it's a science fiction, and I don't really even want to get too much into it because I think so much about this game is discovering what is happening in this world. It reminds me a little bit of like Clockwork Orange or something, not like in the plot, but in like the way that it kind of, you have to sort of just learn new words and like what is going on in this world as you're going, and it kind of, that's part of the fun of unraveling the narrative. But man, this is a very special game. I can't wait to talk about it more next week when I hopefully have finished the game completely. I did play the Tetris 99 NES Maximus Cup, which is still going, I think, until Tuesday. So by the time you're listening to this, it will sadly be over. But I unlocked that NES Tetris theme on Tetris 99 and enjoyed that quite a bit. I still haven't gotten first place. I got second this morning, but I haven't gotten to Maximus yet. But we'll see how that goes. And then one of the games I wanted to talk about last week, but I didn't have time to, was Llamasoft, the Jeff Minter story. That is another one of these Gold Disc series games from Digital Eclipse that goes alongside Atari 50, the making of Karateka, and the new Tetris Forever game. This is a game that came out earlier this year. They're really pumping these out. But this is about Llamasoft, which was kind of a British development studio, but it was all basically one guy, Jeff Minter. And he was this really just out there kind of psychedelic British dude who was like a solo dev in like the early days of like, you know, the ZX Spectrum and kind of the Commodore 64 and stuff like that. So this is another one of those, you know, playable documentaries that you can play from Digital Eclipse. And this one's just really fascinating because Jeff Minter himself is such an interesting guy. I'm kind of enjoying this more than Tetris Forever. Part of that is because I already know the whole story of Tetris and the history of Tetris and Tetris Forever. And this is something that's completely new. And I feel like the documentary sections are a little bit better produced. And it feels a little bit less like an ad for the Tetris company than Tetris Forever does. But this one's just really fascinating. And it's got like 40 games that you can play throughout his catalog. Some of them are very, very basic early like Apple II games or whatever, but then it makes its way all the way up to like Tempest 2000. And Tempest 2000 is a pretty amazing game. So I would definitely recommend checking this out if you're a fan of game history.
Did he make Tempest?
He made Tempest 2000. I don't think he made the original Tempest.
Okay, I was like, man, in the arcade, that is like one of my games. But anyway, I'll go next. So I did play finally with David a little bit of UFO 50. That's my first UFO 50 experience. I am like Patrick. I'm afraid to start this game because I know, like immediately, I know how much time I'm going to sink into it, and I want to play other games. So I'm just like, I just need to mentally be okay with coming back to this over time and playing this game over like a long period of time. But anyway, beside the point, David and I only played some multiplayer games. So David, you're gonna have to help me. So we played the one where you squash the bugs. What's that one called?
Bug Hunter. Yeah,
Bug Hunter.
that's one that Patrick bounced off of. But
yeah,
you
that's
should,
the second game, right?
Yeah, give it another shot, Patrick. It is incredibly fun once you get the kind of rhythm of that.
I'm really terrible at those kind of games. I gave it, but anyway.
I was too when I first played it, and then I fucked around with it a little bit, and I eventually found my rhythm. It was very, very fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So in Bug Hunter, you're a guy hunting bugs. But it's a grid-based kind of movement game where you have limited actions to move and limited actions to attack. And anyway, you're just kind of like the whole mission is you're trying to kill a certain amount of bugs. And in the multiplayer version, you're trying to kill a certain amount of bugs before the other player, and you alternate turns. So it's kind of like a turn-based bug hunting, but you can also like kill the other player or like eliminate the bugs before they can. So there's like a lot of strategy involved, and it felt
it's very
like
into the breach. It's like Into the Breachy. Yeah.
It felt like very like board gamey in that you're just trying to figure out how you can best fuck over the other person. And it was like, I don't know. I thought it was like a really great 2-player experience. We played another one that's more like arena based, and you're collecting the rings. What was that called?
Hyper Contender.
Hyper Contender. I thought it was okay. I just can't see myself playing a lot of it because it is repetitive, and like, you know what I mean? Like after about an hour, I'm like, okay, I get it. But 2-player is a lot of fun. That I could play like more 2-player, but single player, I don't really see myself going for it. And then the last game we played was Party House, which I absolutely loved. It is like exactly my type of game. It is like there's a party going on, you have a deck, and certain things will like you have to just try to not get the cops called on you. So certain people will be trouble, and if you get a certain amount of trouble, the cops get called. You're trying to fill your house before the cops show up. And dude, it's like Balatro, or it's like a Slay the Spire deck builder game, house party game. It's incredible. The 2-player experience was super fun too. Just like, because you're both trying to get the same goal, and you're buying your cards from the same pool. So there's like strategy of like, oh, I see what strategy he's going for. I'm going to try to buy the cards out from under him, and vice versa. And it was beautiful. I've also been playing Brothership, continuing that. I have now gotten to the 3rd Great Lighthouse, of which in the game there are 4. So I would say I'm 75% done with the game, ? I'm not really sure. But I'm about 30 hours in. So I feel like I'm pretty far along in the game. And man, that game just keeps getting better the further it goes along. Like once you're in it, definitely a very slow start, but that's fine with me. Like I was saying when we reviewed it, but yeah, man, it just so much fun. A lot of character, a lot of like great, funny writing. And I just cannot wait to see kind of how it all concludes. And I really hope they make another one of these games. I really want to see them like iterate on this idea. Like it would be sequel of this would probably be incredible. And then lastly, due to shout out Garrett from last episode, he in the games he's been playing, he said, "Oh, I've been playing Vampire Survivors Ode to Castlevania," and I was like, "Fuck!" They like made an official crossover with Vampire Survivors, because I like the base game, but I've never dipped into any of the DLC. But I was like, that's the one. So I used some gold points and I got it for free. And it's incredible. It's like what the sequel to Vampire Survivors should be. So it's like there's one new map and it's massive and it's like the castle from Castlevania. And then on that map, there are bosses. So there's like a weird mechanic where you're having to kill some bosses to unlock different parts of the castle. And they'll also give you different items. So like the more you play, and it's iterative. So it's like once you do it with one character and you unlock a new character, you'll have those same places unlocked. So through different runs, you're having to like do different objectives and like progress the game on that map. And I'm like, dude, that's the sequel to Vampire Survivors. This is what it should be. But it also just adds like 20 or 40 new characters. I can't even keep up. It's like 20 new characters and like 40 new items, and just completely adds like a whole nother layer to the game, to where like this probably could have been its own little spin-off game if they really wanted to, but they just keep adding to the base game, which I really respect. But man, incredible. I cannot wait to see what they do next if they make a Vampire Survivors 2 eventually. But Valarie, what else have you been playing besides Animal Crossing Pocket Camp Complete?
Primarily Pocket Camp, but I will say I also have been playing, there's a second Neko Atsume that came out. It's pretty much the exact same, but I think the biggest new feature is that you can look at other people's backyards. If you're familiar with that game, you're essentially just feeding cats and giving out toys in your backyard to have cats come visit your backyard. Very simple. So I've been playing that, and maybe I'll play some Nintendogs. Go back into that. Why not? I forgot about that feature where you can blow into the mic to blow bubbles for the dogs. And that's just a random feature that I had to explain to my cousin. And it's strange. So I think I'm going to just go experience that again because it's just strange. But yeah.
I would like the next Switch to have a microphone and a camera again. I think that would be really nice. It would open up the possibility for so many gameplay types.
Well, all right, that's going to do it for this episode on Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. Valarie, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me talk about Pocket Camp with other people besides Jordan. So.
Anytime.
Thanks to MilkyWay.co, who does our website. Thank you to Corduroy, who does our music. Thanks to all our patrons over on Patreon. If you're looking for me, Patrick, you can find me online as PDYX.
You can find me online at Boardan.
I'm pretty much ever on the internet at Monolith Fiji. And what about you, Valarie? Where can people find you online?
Nowhere, preferably.
You got it. No worries. Valarie has come and gone out of existence in today's world. Yeah, goodbye. Can we just all try to make you fade away in the video edit here right now? But if you'd like to find our show on social media, we are at Switch Headz on Twitter and Blue Sky. We are at Super Switch Headz on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We have a website that is switchheadz.com. And then we have a Discord, a Facebook group, and a Patreon. We'll have links to all three of those in the description of this episode, whether you're watching it on YouTube or you're listening to it on Spotify or Apple. Please go and check those links out and leave us a review on Apple and Spotify, and give us a subscribe on YouTube as well. Like the video if you can, and share it with your friends. We love to get out there in front of as many people as possible, and we thank you, listener, for continuing to patronize our show. That's going to do it for this episode of Super Switch Headz. We got a great episode lined up for you next week that I'm very excited about. I'm not going to spoil it right now, but oh boy, we got a really cool guest and a very cool topic. I think this one's going to make a lot of people happy. But until then, you guys know the drill out there. Stay safe. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. Download Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, but only the original version, not complete. No, I'm just kidding. Get the new version. It doesn't matter. Give Nintendo your money. Let's drive that stock price all the way to the moon. We love you very much. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.